Would you like to play as a cleric that uses the Taraka deck to aid allies and hinder enemies? Do you want a book filled with over 80 magic weapons, including 43 that have abilities that progress as you go? How would you like to play a character with a monster trapped inside of them, including a brand new way to use magic called corrupted spellcasting? Well, if you answered yes to any of those questions, we've got books that will satisfy those needs and so much more in the latest episode of D&D New Releases. So let's get started. Hi, it's Splinterverse. Welcome to another episode of D&D New Releases, where we offer first impressions of new third-party products for Dungeons & Dragons. We cover a selection of titles from Dungeon Masters Guild and DriveThruRPG each week. The titles are presented in alphabetical order, and all of them are linked in the video description. Purchasing the books using those links helps the channel, but you can also support us by purchasing one of our best-selling books. Our newest release, Dragonlance Companion, offers 180 pages for players and DMs to bring the magical world of Krynn to life. And like many of our books, it's available in hardcover and digital format. Our Swarms of the Multiverse offers over 70 brand new creatures, including their associated swarms, instructions on how to make your own balanced swarms, and lots of bonus materials such as 4 new demi-planes. Our Feywild Companion offers 150 pages of Feywild fun for players and DMs alike. Also, our book, Fizban's Vault of Draconic Secrets, contains over 50 pages of dragon-themed player options, including a subclass for each class and much more. We've got lineages suitable for any setting, as well as optional lineage rules in our Van Richten's Librum of Lineages. With our Potions Unlocked book, we have over 100 pages of material to take potions to the next level in your game. Please support the channel by purchasing our books using the links in the video description. First up, we have Anansi's Gifts of Magic. It says, from humble herbs to arcane artifacts, discover magics both modest and monumental for the world's greatest role-playing game. So it's from Never Ending. It's on sale for $3.99 and it's 26 pages. So it says, invites you to embrace the extraordinary as it brings forth a collection of over 70 magical items for 5th editions. Whether it's poultices, arcane artifacts, or whatever, it's in this book. It says, from the depths of ancient dungeons to hidden enclaves of powerful sorcerers, these artifacts are now yours to use as you see fit, with items ranging from the protective embrace of enchanted armor to the subtle intrigue of mysterious rings. Each page turns to reveal new possibilities for wonder and excitement, such as armor awarded only to the greatest of heroes imbued with powers of protection, or weapons that strike true, leaving lingering damage that can lead to death. Lots of fun concepts on display here. And if you look at the table of contents as we're doing right now, you can see that the different items are organized by their type. So you start with armor, then you go into potions, you've got rings, scrolls and books, wands, weapons, wondrous items, etc. And we're going to look at a few of those. And I'm really enjoying the artwork here that they have for the armor. I think that's really cool. They have this armored regalia, which is going to give you some access to some spells. You've got all sorts of potions, including one I love the name of. It's called sample number 5925.5, which would make sense. You know, maybe there's a scientific wizard or mage or other experimenter creating those. So there's one here called Snail Dye. It's a potion rare, and it's a 1 ounce bottle of different colors, and presumably each of those colors is a different effect, because you've got the black snail dye, the yellow snail dye, and the blue snail dye. So for the black, it says it can be used as magical ink, reducing the time and cost to scribe spells or scrolls by half. And then yellow will fade into invisibility after 1 minute, becoming visible again under the light of the moon. If applied to a small creature, the dye will grant greater invisibility for 24 hours. The creature will be visible under the light of the moon and cannot end the spell early except by magical means. So that could be super useful. And maybe you get all 3 of these. So it's like an assortment and then you can pick and choose when you need them. And then you got blue, will die anything blue for 2d 10 days. Permanent for cloth though, or leather. And it says if swallow the die confers the spell water breathing. The effects until the ink fades from the user's teeth and tongue. So that would be 1 to 10 days. You would have water breathing. When snail die is used where snails are indigenous, roll 1d20. On a roll of 16 to 19, the snail die attracts a swarm of snails in 10 minutes. On a 20, the snail die attracts a giant snail in 1 hour. The creatures are harmless and friendly toward whomever applied the ink. So this is just sort of like followers that you have that are not under your command, but just kind of atmosphere around you. And so then we come to these rings here, and there's one called Ring of the Pyrotechnician, and it's rare, requires attunement. The silver ring is engraved with flame patterns and equipped with a mechanism that, when interacted with, changes the color of the stone set into the ring, and therefore the effect the ring produces also changes. The ring has 4 charges and regains 1d4 at dawn. While wearing the ring, the user can use an action expending charges to cause one of the following effects. So there's a firework finale. It says creates a dazzling display of fireworks within 60 feet that explode with a loud bang, audible out to 300 feet. Anyone within 30-foot radius of the point of origin must make a con saving throw or become stunned until the start of their next turn. If they fail to save by 5 or more, they are also deafened and blinded until the start of your next turn. Creatures that are already blinded or deafened cannot become stunned, but can still become respectively deafened or blinded on failure. And that's got 3 charges. Then you have one called Flash, creates a flash of light that blinds creatures. And then you have Smoke Bomb, which creates a cloud of smoke that fills an area, making it obscured. So some fun options in there. And I love that the little stone on the ring changes based on what you're up to. So, we've just scratched the surface here. We've looked at some potions, we've looked at some rings, but this book has a little bit of every type of item. So if you're looking for more items for your game, this is going to give you a lot of options. And at a $3.99 price point, I mean, that's a really good price for this many items. So check it out. It's under Anansi's Gifts of Magic, and the link's below. Give it a click. Next, we have the Auspex Domain. It's a Cleric Archetype. It says, read and manipulate the strands of fate through the 𝙤𝙤 deck. So that could be really fun, right? The Arcane Syndicate is the creator of this publication, and it is 5 pages. And it says, the gods of fate, including Savras, Ioun, Shai, and Himshut, perceive the future and how the choices of mortals drive their destinies. Some deities consider the future preordained, while others understand the multiverse as a place of infinite possibility. Followers of these gods draw power from the forces of destiny and thus are gifted with the ability to perceive and pluck the strands of fate itself, as a minstrel would the strings of a lyre. So you've got this really cool concept, because there's this 𝙤𝙤 deck, which was part of Ravenloft, right? But there's no reason you can't use it elsewhere. It can be part of your homebrew campaign. It can be part of maybe a campaign that's headed toward Ravenloft or escaping from Ravenloft, or even in Ravenloft. So you've got a lot of different places you could have a 𝙤𝙤 deck. Personally, with this subclass, I think it gives you a reason to have a 𝙤𝙤 deck in almost any campaign. You have to have a little bit of darkness to allow that, but a little bit is good, because I think things become more apparent when there is contrast. So if you have a campaign where everybody is goody two-shoes or everybody's evil, you don't have a ton of contrast. And I'm not saying that you need to have your party be at odds, which, although that can be good, I'm just saying if they're not all cookie cutter and you have some slight variations and maybe just a tiny bit of darkness or a tiny bit of something. And so I was excited when I saw this, not only because the cover, I mean, look at this cover, it's really beautiful, but just the fact that you have now another use for the 𝙤𝙤 deck, because Wizards has produced a 𝙤𝙤 deck that you can use, or you can use tarot cards, I think there's also ways to maybe use a traditional deck of cards that you can pretend is a Taraka deck, or you can probably print your own, print on demand or just from your own home printer to simulate having a deck, however you want to do it. But again, another way to use a Taraka deck, and it's really cool. And this was originally designed for the author's Curse of Strahd campaign, but like I said, it can go out from there and just be a cleric who uses this. And I think, being able to play with the deck at the table and actually show it as you're doing whatever your character's doing, I just think that's so fun, and it engages more than one sense, right? Rather than just theater of the mind, you've got these visuals of shuffling the deck and playing the card, or showing the card and passing the card around, however you're doing it, right? So fun. Let's look inside. They give you a foreword in how to convert a tarot deck into a Taraka deck. But again, that's just one way. I know there's other ways out there that you can find on Google, or even the official deck that's been printed. So, which is cool. I love that Wizards is printing these sort of non-standard decks, because they just did, the deck of many things as well. So here we get into the domain itself, and you get access to some spells. First level, detect magic, detect evil and good, all the way up to commune and scrying at the 9th level. And then first level, you get a feature called Omen's Importance. You always have the augury spell prepared, and it doesn't count towards the number of spells you can prepare each day. In addition, when you cast augury, you can choose to expedite its casting. When expedited, the cast does not expend a spell slot. The cast time is an action instead of a minute, and it has no components. You cannot expedite the casting of augury again until you finish a long rest. In addition, until you finish a long rest, whenever you cast a divination spell that includes a chance of the DM giving you no answer, or a random reading, such as augury, commune, or divination, reduce that chance by 25%. So that could be really helpful, especially if you're selecting this subclass to delve deeply into sort of a divination style of play, fortune teller, whatever you want it to be, oracle, right? Whatever story you're crafting, backstory for your character, with the DM's permission, of course, you could have a better chance than others at getting a proper or desired result from some of these things like commune. So cool. Then also at first level, there's this feature called Read Fate. You gain the ability to foresee the future through your Taraka deck. When you finish a long rest, return all cards to your deck, then shuffle it. Draw a number of cards equal to your proficiency bonus. Cards drawn from the deck are available cards. Place them face up. An available card can be used for its effect once. Once it has been used, discard it. Turn the card face down. And then there's much more to it, but this is all we can see in the preview, but which is fine because it's a 5-page publication, so we don't necessarily want to give everything away. But what I'm loving is that you get to see some of this really cool artwork. I'll zoom out so you can see the full figure here, but it looks like it's by Emily Harrison, presumably doing both the cover and this figure that we see here. It looks really cool. And of course, I love seeing original artwork in things. So very, very cool. I think this would be a lot of fun. I would definitely consider playing this if I was going to create a cleric and my DM allowed it. So check it out. It's under Auspex Domain in the links below. So give it a click. Next, we have Beasts of the Frozen Wastes. It says it's from Critical Crafting and it's $9.99 for 40 pages. And I'm a fan of Critical Crafting. We've looked at a number of their releases, but they always have really great artwork and concepts, and they build upon each other. You don't need each piece that they release, but you can mix and match and take the different things that they're putting out and easily work with it together as a whole setting if you want, or, like I said, plug and play into your own campaign. So lots of versatility with the stuff from Critical Crafting, and there's so many individual pieces in their work that you can cut out. So this, it says the Beast of the Frozen Tundra bundle brings you everything needed to run a Frozen Tundra themed adventure for 5th edition. It has 5 Tundra themed ready to drop encounters for parties of all levels, 6 original stat blocks, 8 VTT monster tokens, 8 new items with item cards, 5 spells with printable spell cards, 7 battle maps, 7 feats, and 4 deficiencies, which is a concept they've introduced previously, but I'm sure they introduced it here as well to give you everything you need. A new player subclass for the fighter called the Primal, and then you've got a new player race called the Bruma. So as I said, a mixture of things. So if you want to just pull out a spell or an item or a race, you have those options, and I love that. So of course it's going to give you all this information about the Frozen Wastes. It says, home to strange creatures and deadly weather, few dare call the Frozen Wastes home. For those that do, great fortunes can be made, taking from the bounties of nature, if they can survive the harsh environs. And then it's split into 3 regions, and it details all of those, as well as other points of interest. And then it goes into all sorts of information about the various hazards, such as, hypothermia, snow blindness, something called winter cold, and then extinction ice. So sometimes the cold is enough to freeze creatures instantly, descending on a region like a creeping doom. Usually extinction ice is the result of some foul magic, but some natural extinction ice storms exist. An extinction ice storm usually spans a 5-mile radius. The storm moves at a speed of 5 miles per hour, or 40 feet per turn. If characters encounter an extinction ice storm, roll initiative. On initiative count 20, the storm advances. And then it goes through the rest of what happens. But I love the name Extinction Ice. That would feel quite a bit scary coming at you, I have to say. And then they've got their encounters. And it's always a mixture of options. So this one is gives you both non-combat and combat options. It can be urban or at a campsite. And it says level 1 if there's going to be combat, or any level if there's not. Then you kind of know your party and whether they're quick to fight or not. And then you get your maps. And then we have another one here called a dire situation, which we're going to read a little bit of. But again, they're telling you character levels 2 to 4, environment Arctic or even aquatic. So even though, again, the book is frozen tundras and this one is Arctic, it's also optionally aquatic. So versatility is the word I would use for critical crafting. It says the characters are told of a mighty beast resting on the freezing ice floats of a nearby sea. The beast has been sinking so many ships that only a few small rowboats and fishing vessels remain. The local fishermen have gathered together what little they can to pay someone to slay the beast. The characters are given a rowboat to sail out and confront the beast. The fishermen promise they can keep the boat if they slay the monster. If the characters have no use for such a boat, they insist instead they can fetch a decent price for it, not to mention attain local fame for slaying the beast. So here's the flavor text as the encounter begins. It says, sailing through frigid waters, you hear a strange call, a sort of barking grunt that issues across the water. Peering through the frigid mist, you can see a bulking form lumbering about on an ice float. A walrus, so immense it dwarfs your small rowboat. You can see the shattered remains of ships and the frozen corpses of sailors half buried in the ice. So very fun, flavorful introduction. And it turns out, spoiler alert, it's a dire walrus. And so you're going to have to deal with this thing. And it says, role-playing, the dire walrus is absolutely enraged, attacking anything that comes close. It's in a state of distress. It is mating season and no mate has been found. It says if a creature transforms into a walrus of the opposite sex or summons one, it may calm the beast, though the walrus is likely to be very attracted to said creature. So that could make for some interesting predicaments in the adventure. But you see the creativity, as usual, on display in critical crafting. As I've said before, I really love their work. I hope at some point there's some bundles so people can grab a bunch of their titles all at once. But I really think they've got a good thing going, and just so much to enjoy, and the world just keeps expanding and expanding. So it's a good time to get in and check out some of the things that they're up to, and it's in the video description links under Beasts of the Frozen Wastes. Give it a click. Next, we have Druids, Secrets of the Primal Circle, Revised Edition 2024, filled with Druid player options and GM resources. So, looking at this and preparing for the video, it is really, really a good Druid resource. Like, if you're a fan of Druids or you want more for Druids, I mean, this is clearly written by folks that understand Druids and are passionate about it. So I was excited to bring this to you because there's a lot of people I know that like Druids. I think they're really cool myself, and I'm always excited when there's a Druid in the party when I'm playing. So here we have it from HBG, also known as Homebrewed Games LLC, $22, but it's 182 pages. So I think that price point is good, and you're going to get a lot for it. 5th edition. And this is revised. So what I want to stress about that is that this has been around, this has been out, this has been available. So it's had its tires kicked. People have tried to use this and had feedback, I'm sure, for the authors, including the authors themselves. And that has been rolled into this because it is a revised edition. You don't just put out a revised edition to put it out, right? There's something that's changed, been improved, been enhanced, maybe even more artwork. So keep that in mind. A lot of works we see, they're the first ones out. So another bonus to this title is that it's a revision, so we know it's got some legs to it. So it says it includes the first 4 chapters from the original Druids book, and it has been revised, obviously. It says this resource not only includes 17 new subclasses and 100 plus spells, but you also find a new martial-oriented class, the Dire Druid. So not only are you getting traditional Druid stuff, you're getting a sort of variant class called the Dire Druid, and it's more martial focused. So I mean, this is going to be a really fun way to bring Druids to life and expand what's out there for you. It has rules for building Druidic councils, awesome uses for the Druidic language, and a detailed explanation of the Druid's aversion to metal armor. So again, fleshing things out. It says if you are a player interested in role-playing a Druid character, or a GM searching for new material to drive your campaign, this book has what you need to create an amazing gaming experience. So looking inside, you can see all that deep dive information into Druids, fleshing things out. It says the origins of wild shape. It says Druidic language and Druidic marks. Rank and reputation, chosen lands, sacred lands, etc. Then you get some character options, including the new Dire Druid variant with a ton of subclasses. Everything from Spirit of the Bat to Spirit of the Wolf, so that's a cool thing. And then you get an alternative version of the Druid class, and then a bunch of Druidic circles, everything from Circle of Blood and Iron all the way to the Primal Circle. So lots and lots of Druid subclasses, and then wild shape alternatives, which could be fun, and backgrounds including Raised by Wolves and Tribal Totem, and then a ton of spells. Sounded like, I think, over 100 if I read correctly. And then Eldritch Foraging, Eldritch items by region and their descriptions, and then appendices on Druids and councils and council names. So this really leaves no stone unturned. I mean, every aspect of Druidic existence seems to be covered here, which I love. And as with all things, you can pick and choose. You don't have to use everything. But if you want to have a Druid-themed campaign or just really build up the Druidic lore in your homebrew setting, this is going to be a great way to do it, or even a published setting for that matter. So there aren't a ton of actual excerpts from the text in the sample that we can see here. So I wanted to just read a little bit more about the chapters so you can get a better understanding of what's inside. So chapter 1, Druids. Druids provides some new insight into the many age-old questions about druids, new twists on old traditions, and a detailed look at druidic society. So this is really going to help backstory. This is great for players potentially to read, or for you if you're creating druidic NPCs. And then Chapter 2, Character Options, provides the new variant class, the Dire Druid, and several druidic circles that focus on unique aspects of the druid class. It also includes those wild shape alternatives and new backgrounds. And then the spells include new spells with a particular focus on nature-themed spells for the Druid, Dire Druid, and other classes. So it's not just exclusive to druids. That's good to know. And then Eldritch Foraging presents a new variant foraging rule that allows characters to find a variety of useful items in the world's flora and fauna, which again ties into druids and what they're up to. You might even be able to maybe have a ranger involved a little bit with that. Maybe they can track some of these eldritch things, right? So this book, although it's deep into druid stuff, it's 182 pages of it. There's going to be bits and pieces, I think, that you're going to find work for other classes, for certainly NPCs, for factions. And it's so well presented, looks beautiful. It just seems lovingly put together. So I'm hoping that you'll give it a chance. It's in the video description links. It's under Druids, Secrets of the Primal Circle. Give it a click. Next, we have the Forged Dragons, a bone-chilling noir adventure for characters of 4th level from Bianca Bickford. And it's $4.99 for 25 pages, 5th edition. It says, hold your course. You're headed straight to Icewind Dale, a bitterly cold land cloaked in blinding snowstorms and shrouded in mystery. But stranger still is the destiny that awaits at the Santana Inn. A band of counterfeiters has successfully turned lead into gold long enough to pass as real coin. The gang, called the Keystone Company, is lodging in the Santana Inn to wait for their next buyer. This final transaction is their last big job before retiring to nearby Ironmaster. Travel to the inn and bring the criminals to justice. But can you last the night when an unexpected blizzard leaves everyone stranded? So, I love that setup. Sounds so filled with opportunities to go wrong, to go well, and just sort of putting a lid on the conflict. I mean, when characters are trapped, it brings that conflict enclosed, right? It sort of surrounds it, so it's inescapable. And one of my favorite writing teachers used to say, create the conflict and then put a lid on it, meaning trap it in so that you cannot escape, or it feels that way. And then as the story progresses, we find out how we're going to overcome that. But that feeling, that tension that comes from putting the lid on it and just sort of sealing everything in there is a very powerful, dramatic driver of stories. So I love that. So the author here has really understands that. So it says, if you love noir films like Key Largo and The Hateful Eight, this module is for your table. That's another great thing here, is the inspiration of film noir. I love film noir, and it's just such a cool thing that, the further we get away from that time period in history when these films were made, the 40s, 50s, it's going to become less and less known. So when people bring it to the surface and say, hey, film noir, it's exciting. It makes new people discover it, right? So you're getting this 4th level adventure, but it can be explored over several sessions. You can use it as a one-shot, or you can add it to Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden, as a supplement. Roll on random tables or improv the action and raise the stakes, so various options there. 5 unique NPCs to challenge your players, and has 5 standalone maps from cartographer Brian Patterson. So very cool. And just flipping through it earlier, but you can see a great example of it here. There's a lot of pencil sketch artwork in here, and even the maps have that sort of grayscale pencil feel. And I think that's awesome, because if your inspiration is noir, it's black and white, right? And shades of gray. And that's one of the things that makes noir so interesting, is how light is used. And when you don't have color, like how to use the lights, the darks, the grays in between the black and white color palette, basically. So it's cool to see that the authors infuse that, because right off the bat, and when you open the preview, you can see there's this grayscale map, but it feels like it's got a lot of shades of gray and that sketch feeling to it, which adds to this atmosphere they're trying to create. So cool. You see the pasture stables in here, so you can reuse this map for a lot of stuff, which is also nice when you get maps. But I'm just going to do a quick scroll before we start reading, so you can see that feeling of the pencil sketch and those maps throughout really ties into this inspiration from the author. So love that. So you get the adventure background, those passable counterfeits. It's not good. We don't want counterfeit gold running around. And then here we have a flavor text box. So I want to read that to you so you can get a sense for the writing. It says, a sign for the Santana Inn swings wildly above the double doors that welcome you as you step up. One of the doors swings open and a tall, dark-skinned woman leans out. Get your horses and wagons stowed in the barn, she yells to be heard over the wind. I'll help you get there and give you a hand if everyone helps. Then you get yourselves inside and warm up. She disappears for a moment and returns wearing a fur-lined coat and cloak. She slips a hand under the noseband of the lead horse and waits for assistance. So, big entrance for this character, which is cool. I love that. It sounds like the character's name is Vivian. And so, just bursting through with wind, right? You engaging the senses again with the writing here, and I love that. So lots to play with here. You might even, thinking about film noir music, you might even be able to bring some of that in, some of the scores from those films. You could use, as transition material at your table, or even just to set the mood before play begins. But again, you get this dramatic entrance here of Vivian. And what I love is when you look to the right here, you get that whole description of Vivian, and it includes those personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws, which technically is the way that you're supposed to engage some of these NPCs, right? But I always love them because it gives you their voice. It gives you a way to improv them, or to just literally read what they're saying. So for personality trait for Vivian, it says, I'm too old and been around too long to put up with any nonsense. Right? So that gives you a sense of who Vivian is. Doesn't have time for your silliness. Wants to get to the point. And then ideal, we can find peace if we can live in balance. So even though Vivian doesn't have time, she is striving for that balance. And it says, bond, I want to live a quiet life taking care of my inn and patrons. So this is why maybe the nonsense. It's interrupting that quiet life if the nonsense is going on. So you start to see, you see how you get the picture of who Vivian is, and sort of the outline of her boundaries of like, okay, I'm happy that this is bringing quiet and balance, but you step outside here and you start doing the nonsense, you got to go. Right? And again, there's more. I'm sampling to give you a taste of the writing here. But it talks about blizzards and extreme cold and how to deal with that. And then there's something called a banded stone here. Let's read about that. It's a wondrous item, uncommon. Each banded stone is about 6 inches tall and wrapped in iron-studded bands. These bands are permanently enchanted to generate heat in a 10-foot radius using a command word. If the stone is touched when activated, it causes 2d8 fire damage to a creature, but will not ignite objects. So that's cool. It's generating heat in a 10-foot radius. And it causes a little bit of damage when you first touch it. That's cool, because we're dealing with blizzards here. We're going to be trapped in this inn where it's very cold. So having something like that around could be cool. So you have safe haven down here. It says, let's read a little bit of the flavor text box here. It says, Vivian points at a sign on the wall and says, I spent most of my life fighting, and there's no point to it. I refuse to see it in my home. I don't have time to deal with petty arguments, so don't you dare try and take what isn't yours. And if you drink too much, you mop up the mess. I'm not a believer in second chances. You break the rules, and there will be hells to pay. So again, you're really getting Vivian's voice, and it is consistent with what we read earlier, right? And so the more and more that you have, the easier it's going to be, I think, for the DM to improv and portray Vivian, because you know what those lines are, what those boundaries are for her and her interests and flaws and things like that, right? Love it. So we're just scratching the surface, but this author has clearly thought things through, has a good understanding of writing and techniques of writing to increase conflict and tension. And in even Vivian, I mean, if you think about Vivian's sort of sensibilities, that could be a problem, because you don't want nonsense, but we got to take these guys out because they're causing a problem right here on your property. So there's going to be innate conflict just based on her personality, because she seems to be somewhat strict with how she wants things to be. This is her world, right? She seems to run this place, but at the same time wants this problem dealt with, probably. So it's not always going to be smooth sailing. And I love that, and I love this noir influence. If you haven't found out about film noir, I encourage you to Google it and look for videos and just kind of get a primer on it so you can see what it's all about. There's some really cool movies out there for film noir, and now there's a cool adventure. So I encourage you to look for it. It's called The Forged Dragons, and it's in the video description links. Give it a click. Next, we have the Vessel, Become the Monster. It's a full class including corrupt spellcasting from GMBF Homebrew 399, 15 pages, 5th edition. It says, what if the soul of an aboleth or beholder got trapped inside of you? The Vessel is a half-caster class that answers this very question. When you become a vessel, your body is now host to the soul of a powerful entity that is slowly corrupting it. And it's got a brand new spellcasting method called Corrupt Spellcasting, where prepared spells can only be cast once, and then they become corrupted and cannot be cast again until this corruption is removed through a short or long rest. When all your spells become corrupted, your own soul begins to fade, and you score critical hits more often as the bestial nature emerges. But hostile creatures can do the same to you. Also, gain powers based on your chosen subclass, which is dictated by the type of creature that happens to be locked inside of you. And you can use those indefinitely as long as you have the charges. As you gain levels, you start to become more and more like a monster. You gain legendary resistances, legendary actions, and even a mythic trait. So, fun stuff. We've covered great titles from GMBF Homebrew before. They always have so much on offer with beautiful, fun, playful artwork. It reminds me of some really cool cartoons, Adventure Time, and just a lot of fun cartoons that are out there with the artwork. But it's a half-caster class. You get that new spellcasting method, and then 5 subclasses, which is a thumbs up from us, because we always say, you give us a new class, better have more than 3 subclasses. So here we are, 5. So awesome. 3 feats exclusive to the Vessel, 2 new spells, and of course the hand-drawn artwork that we adore here. So if you're new to GMBF Homebrew, we've covered their stuff several times, and it's always fun. So you really want to take a look. It's so great when there's this sort of holistic feel of artwork working in tandem with the text, and you get that from GMBF Homebrew's books. We're going to look at the preview. It is a little bit of a different appearance because it is, you can see under the cover up here that it's got a publisher preview. So it's going to look like a different screen. So just a heads up on that. But I like publisher previews because it doesn't have that horrible watermark in the way. And also they can skip around and show you pieces of the book rather than a continuous section that may or may not really showcase everything that the book has to offer. So with the publisher preview, you can skip pages and make sure that occurs. So it talks about the different ways that you may have become a vessel, because again, you're hosting a soul of a powerful entity alongside your own. So were you cursed? Did you make a deal? Did maybe you defeat an enemy and you thought you killed it, but like a sliver of it remained and it creeped inside your body somehow? So lots of stuff. It says, the hostile souls that plague vessels are normally creatures that are well known to seasoned adventurers, like aboleths, mimics, and beholders. The type of creature currently residing within you dictates many of your vessel powers. So I think a DM could even have fun, really crafty one, coming up with some additional subclasses for other monsters. But the classics and main ones are covered here, which is awesome. The soul inside you wants to escape, but it cannot do so, not yet. While it looks for a way out, it needs to keep the host alive. A symbiotic partnership in more ways than one. It will grant you incredible powers, including the ability to use magic, but in a deep, contorted way. The spells you cast become corrupted, tainted by these evil powers, and depleting your energies leaves you fragile to the advances of your hostile soul. Here's your sort of chart. It shows you how many prepared spells you can have. So at most, you're going to have 3. And as we talked about with corrupted spell casting, when you've cast them, you can't cast them again until you have a short or long rest. So if you can only have 2 or 3 spells, that makes sense. It works, because you're not going to have that many anyway. But it's a half caster, so you shouldn't have a lot of them. And you're only going to go up to 3rd level with your spells, ultimately. So it talks about the class features, and then those are covered even more here with spells under corrupted spell casting. So you got hostile soul. You start manifesting the powers granted by the hostile soul that is corrupting your inner self. Your choice grants you features when you choose it at 1st level, and then 3rd, 6th, 14th, and 18th. So there's different fighting styles that are covered. And then at 2nd level, your strange corruption allows you to warp reality around you. So you prepare the list of vessel spells that are available for you to cast, choosing from the vessel spell list. The vessel table shows how many spells you can prepare. The spell you choose to prepare must be of a level no higher than what's shown. So ultimately, only as high as 3rd level. And it says wisdom is your spellcasting ability. And at 6th level, you gain a flying speed equal to your movement speed. That's cool. And your proficiency bonus with the perception skill is doubled. And then when you get to 14th, you gain the following legendary power. You have discharge eye rays. Shoot 3 of your eye rays at random and reroll duplicates, choosing a target you can see within 60 feet, but with the following added options. So paralyzing ray, sleep ray, petrification ray, disintegration ray, and death ray. So that could be really cool to have a death ray. The target must make a dex saving throw against your spell save DC or take 10d10 necrotic damage. The target dies if the ray reduces it to 0 hit points. So you get to 14th level, you're going to be definitely an obstacle to any enemy out there. And it says at 18th level, while you're in your mythic form, you begin manifesting an anti-magic cone, like the anti-magic field spell in front of you. So there's going to be like a 30-foot cone of anti-magic. So that's going to be helpful. We're just kind of jumping around. So this one that we were looking at is because again, we're in a publisher preview, so the pages are skipping, right? So this one that I read about with the eyes is probably like the beholder soul. And so those would be your subclass features. I didn't notice at first that we had skipped a page. I should, because I was telling everyone how you could skip pages at the beginning, but I didn't notice. So apologies. But we got a bullet soul, or bullet. I'm not sure how most people say it. Mind flayer soul. Yeah, so again, we're covering those classics. I think it could be really fun to feel like as a player, you're dealing with this conflict inside of you because you've got this passenger that is attached to your soul and is like, I'm gonna try to escape, but at the same time so that's a downside. But then the upside is that you're getting this power, and so role playing that, and maybe there's arguments to be had with the soul inside you about whether you can use a power for a certain objective that you have or not. Maybe the soul disagrees with you, so it maybe gives you a little challenge. Maybe that's how you explain a failure when you roll, is that the soul said, no, not doing that, not gonna help you with that, sorry. So I think it just could be a lot of fun doing that. And again, you can make with classes. I know some people get nervous about a new class. I'm not so nervous about it because there's always ways to figure things out. But you can also apply it to an NPC, a follower, somebody that's helping the party, a sidekick. You can find ways to use these for other characters as well, or even just take some of the abilities and use it. So I always love these options that you get, even if you don't use the full class. But I think it could be fun to play as the full class. Maybe, go look through the subclasses, see which ones work for your table. But there's ones based on Aboleth, Beholder, Bullet, Mimic, and Mind Flayer. Oh, Mimic sounds like it could be just a hoot. Anyway, it's called the Vessel, and I hope you look for it in the video description link below and give it a click. Next, we have Weapons of Legend with this glorious, gorgeous cover. I really, really love this. I think it's perfect for a book like this. And it's from Jeff Stephen Games, $14.95 for 68 pages. And it says, enhance your treasure hoards, villains, and shopkeepers with unique and fascinating magical weapons. It's got 83 weapons. So not just magical items, but focused on the weapons that are within items. Because not all magical items, are weapons, right? You can have a potion or some other thing. So, but not only are they magical items, but they're weapons. So that's a very important distinction here, because you may have a lot of other books. We've even looked at some on the show that are giving you all these items, which is great. You need those as well. But sometimes you get those books and maybe there's only a couple weapons and you really needed a bunch of weapons. So having a book that's focused purely on the weapon side is interesting. But it doesn't stop there. There's a progression system for 43 of them. So even though there's 83 weapons, more than half of them are going to give you options to have them progress based on certain milestones that occur. So you can acquire your magic weapon and then just stick with it. I think one of the challenges DMs have all the time is, when do I give them this magic item, and what rarity goes with this level, and it's just, there's some anxiety because you don't want to give them something too early, but you don't want them to be underpowered. And so I think one of the things that concepts like this solve is you can just give an item to a character and they can just have it for the duration of the character's lifespan if they want. Maybe the player behind the character is like, I'm bored with this, I want to get a different one. But you have that option when you have these scaling types of designs. So of course, artwork, and there's even encounter ideas to help the GMs introduce those weapons. You get those progression rules and then those scalable statistics, because of course, as the item scales in power, it should go from whatever rarity to a higher rarity, right? And you can see it's just beautifully done. Jeff Stevens Games always does a good job of presentation, which I love. So here we have the contents, and I just want you to notice alphabetically we're seeing these items, and it starts with the progressive ones that change over time, that scale, and then it goes into the traditional ones. But what I love is it says the name, so Adder's Embrace, and then in parentheses Pike, or Amzi's Trophy, parentheses Dagger, in the table of contents. That's awesome, because a lot of times it doesn't have that. And then you're like, oh, that sounds like a cool name, but is it going to be the weapon type that the character I'm trying to give this to can even use? So you don't have to turn the page. You don't have to go to the number listed in the table of contents. You can just look at the parentheses and say, oh, it's a flail. That works. Or, oh, it's a rapier. Perfect. Right? Off we go. And it continues that style for the traditional magic weapons, which is awesome as well. But just from names, it goes from Adder's Embrace all the way down to Twilighter for those ones that scale. And then traditional goes from something called Anachronism, which is a dagger, all the way down to Woodcarver's Knife, which is also a dagger. But there's lots of things. There's darts, nets, whips, javelins. I mean, you name it, it's in here. Spears, hand axes. We've got you covered. So it just talks about how does it work, how do you attune, how do you sell, all that. So I'm not going to dive into that. I'll leave that for you to read. But it's good that they're going through all these things, because you're going to have questions like, okay, I know how attunement works, but how does it work with something that scales, right? So you need some background on that. So there's quite a few pages here at the beginning that are going to really get you primed and ready to answer all those questions, which I love. But what I really want to show you, I'm going to zoom out just for a second so you can get this feeling for it, right? Is, okay, so here's Adder's Embrace, and then here's Amzi's Trophy. So they each get their own page with everything explained. So you can literally just print this page for yourself, and then, you know, maybe cut pieces of it out if you don't want them to see the encounter ideas, or just print parts of it. Or copy paste it for the player. We're going to zoom in and read about Adder's Embrace, but what a cool way of doing it. It really makes it simple, easy to understand. They're not feeling that pressure to wrap everything, which I love, because we don't wrap everything at Splinterverse either. Give things its space, so you're gonna be able to focus just on Adder's Embrace here. So it carries a wicked surprises from the serpent coiled around its spike. So you can see this long sort of spear. What is it called? Let's see. Let's look at the table of contents. It's a pike. All right. I'm not super skilled at identifying weapons. It's a pike. So the spike part of the pike has a serpent coiled around it. It says, legend says the warlord Tyrax created this pike using a serpent from her Medusa lieutenant's head. Under this new standard, her armies ravaged the land. Stories vary as to whether her lieutenant usurped command or the pike was hidden by Tyrax until the day she returns from an unknown plane to unite the world beneath her banner. Cool backstory. Love the Medusa part. That's awesome. And the names are cool. And you don't have to use that. You can use it or not, but it's nice that it's there, and it sounds really cool, and a really interesting detail with the Medusa thing. It says, location, the Adder's Embrace can often be found as a trophy on the battlefield, in the reliquary of a war deity's shrine, or as the prize weapon of a despotic general. Nice that you're getting choices there for where you could find this. Then encounter ideas. It says, stone clutches, Adder's Embrace is trapped in the grips of both Medusa and Adventurer mid-bite as they petrified each other. Another Medusa guards the statues until their stone love can be restored. Great idea for an adventure. And that's one. There's 3 here. I'm not going to read all 3. I want you to read them. But how great was that first one? Lots of story possibilities. Progression. Adder's Embrace progresses as the creature who is attuned to it progresses. Whenever the creature's proficiency bonus increases, the weapon's rarity also increases. And they talk about, earlier in the book, that the progression can vary. It can be based on when you level, when other things happen. So in this particular instance, it's based on that proficiency bonus, which is probably going to be from leveling, going up, right? But yeah, that's easy to follow along and know when things happen, because sometimes it can be more complicated. But it's nice that the authors are giving you those simple progression mechanics as well. So here you have statistics. So when it's common, it has 3 charges. It regains some at dawn. Snake Bite. It says, as a bonus action, you can expend a charge to make a melee attack with the pike's serpent head. On a hit, the pike deals piercing damage and poison damage. Nice. And then uncommon, you gain a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with the magic weapon, and its charges increases, both the amount it has and how much it recharges. And then you get this trait called Lunging Coils. As an action, you can spend 2 charges to cause the serpent to lock around a large or smaller creature within the weapon's reach, grappling it. Very cool. So now it has more functionality because you've gotten to a point that your proficiency bonus went up, so you unlock this. When you get to rare, the bonus to attack and damage rolls increases to +2. The DC of Lunging Coils increases to 13. So now instead of a DC 10 for that grappling thing, you're going to have a 13. And its total number of charges is all the way up to 7. Cool. Love it. Then you get this additional ability, Blinding Venom. As an action, you can spend 3 charges to spit venom from the serpent's mouth in a 15-foot cone. Each creature in the cone must succeed on a dex saving throw or take poison damage and be blinded. Love it. Love it. And there's numbers for these. I just skip over those for ease of reading. And then very rare, the bonus to attack and damage rolls increases to +3. The DCs increase, the number of charges increase, and then you get Petrify. As an action, you can expend 6 charges to cast Flesh to Stone spell from the weapon. And then lastly, at Legendary, the DCs increase to 17, charges to 11, and your Dexterity score increases. So, as does your minimum for that score, or maximum, I should say, for that score. So, lots of benefits just unlocking, and they make sense. You know, you've got the snake bite initially, then you got some grappling that the snake could do, and then you got venom. So it all sort of fits together, makes sense, believable. You can say, oh, you know, the Medusa's spirit is awakening within this item, and so it's becoming more powerful. However you want to narrate, either as the GM or the player, exposing the reasoning behind, you know, because your character isn't going to say, oh, I leveled. I mean, well, maybe if you're playing a really oddball campaign, but in story, you're probably not going to say I leveled and my proficiency bonus went up, so now I'm getting you with my Lunging Coils. You're probably going to want to come up with a description, so that can also be really cool about this. Right, most magic items is like, oh, I got this random wand and it does this thing. I'm casting a spell with it. Cool. Yay. The end. But when it's progressing, you have reasons to keep coming back to this, almost like a subplot of what is going on with Adder's Embrace. You know, I can feel the power surging through it. It's you know, it too is becoming stronger as I train, you know, whatever, right? You can have so much fun with stuff like this. But first, you have to get the book. And it's in the video description links under Weapons of Legend. And I hope you go down there and give it a click. Next, we come to that part of the episode where we do some shout outs of other titles that released during the release window that we're covering with this episode, but we just don't have time to take a deep dive into, but we hope you check them out on your own time. We've got Beyond Icespire's Peak, Stormlord's Wrath, DM's Guide, and this is meant to help prep you for adventures. And it is $7.95 for 25 pages, and it says it's intended to take place after the Dragon of Icespire Peak adventure, but also suitable for running after Lost Mines of Phandelver, and of course, it's 5th edition. Then we've got Hanging Coffins of the Vampire Queen, $10 for 40 pages. Even though the right-hand side of the screen says it's for OSR Osric, this is the 5th edition version. It's an adventure for levels 10 to 14, and it's got some original monsters as well. Then we've got Level Up to Save a Kingdom, which is officially for Advanced 5th edition, but you know, Advanced 5th edition is backwards compatible with 5th edition, so you're good there. It's filled with adventures, monsters, and items, and it's a whopping 420 pages for $19.99. Then we've got Orcs, a Forger's Guild Guide, Who's Who, basically. It's a system-neutral book filled with NPCs for you, so it's $4.99. 96 pages, so no matter what system you're using, this is going to have NPCs that you can bring to your game. Then we've got Templars and Tyrants, which is $14.99 for 82 pages, is filled with Paladin subclasses, an anti-Paladin class, as well as some spells, and it is also for 5th edition. And then we've got Toil and Trouble, the Kitchen Witch archetype and Hearth magic for every witch. This is for Advanced 5th edition as well. It's got spells, items, and a subclass. And keep in mind, Advanced 5th edition A5E is backwards compatible with 5th edition, so should have no trouble swinging it back around to regular 5th edition if you want. It's $7.99 for 15 pages. And then we've got Travelers and Trinkets, $4.99 for 29 pages. It's system neutral, and it's filled with items and NPCs that go great together. So looks like it could be really fun for any table and any system, which we love that. So thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave us a comment. All of that will help with the algorithm. And if you can share the video out there with your friends so that they know about our humble little show, that would be great. We need to help expose all of these third-party creators. It's getting harder and harder each day to be a third-party creator. So we need to continue to lift them up and help them stay in business. And if you click those links in the video description, that's going to help them the most by purchasing their book, leave them a review, follow them on social media, and it's going to help the channel because there's going to be a small affiliate fee that we will get even if you purchase anything else on the sites that we link to. So we love it if you bookmark one of our links to be used for your DM's Guild or your drive-through RPG bookmark, because then every time you shop you're helping us. So that's awesome. And another way you can help us is we have 7 books of our own that we've released. Those are listed in the video description, or you can go to splinterverse.com, check those out. We've got our Mithril best-selling Feywild Companion, our Platinum best-selling Dragonlance Companion, and a 2-book Kickstarter coming later this year. So you're going to want to make sure you follow us everywhere, not just here on YouTube. And we are in all the places at Splinterverse. So whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, Mastodon, you name it, we're there under Splinterverse. So look for us even on your newer socials, and we would be happy to have you follow us. Well, thanks so much for watching and supporting all these awesome creators as well as our channel. We love it. We love you. And until next time, happy adventuring.